Matthew 7th chapter, verse 13, it says you can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for many who choose that way. When I was in school, there was a poem that I learned. I hate that I know part of it, but I cannot memorize. I didn't memorize all of it and remember it. So I would like to read it to you. It's probably one some of y'all have maybe learned when you were in English class. It's a poem that was written by Robert Frost. It's called The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for the passing there, had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I marked the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubled it. I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood and I took the one less traveled by. And that's made all the difference. It might be hard for some to understand what Robert Frost was trying to say here. I don't know exactly, but I know what it says to me. I want to try to point out just a few things here that maybe, you see, what he's writing about is a lone traveler. And we're all lone travelers. You're a lone traveler here. Oh, we're here as a group. Yeah, we're here as the body of Christ, as church. But really, when it gets right down to you, one day you're going to stand before God. And you're going to be that lone traveler. But we're taking a journey, each one of us. We might not be aware of that journey. And in that journey, there's different crossroads that you're going to come to in life. And in those crossroads, you're going to make choices. And it's so important that you make the right choices. Sometimes when I come in here, I have such a heaviness on me because I fear that people don't realize the seriousness of when God speaks. I'm not saying me, but when the voice of God speaks to our hearts as individuals, and we don't listen, the seriousness of turning away and rejecting that voice. This traveler, he comes to this fork in the road, and he looks down each path, both ways, as far as he possibly could. But he can't determine which is the most desirable, which path he should take. And actually, as he looks down, as you read here, if you listen real close, you can tell he'd sort of like to go down both of them. And that's where we've been in life, especially when we're younger. We go in and we think, well, that sounds good, but that looks good, and well, I don't know over this, and then this over here, I just don't know about that. But when he really gets right down to it, actually we realize he realizes I can't take both paths. I have to take one. There's only one path I can take, but I have the choice of two. And in his imagination, he starts walking. And he walks and he walks, and he nears the end of life. And perhaps, and this sort of stirred me, perhaps he's sitting down with his grandchildren. And he's sitting there and he's talking. And he says something like this. I had to write it down. I couldn't remember it as I wrote it. It said, "Oh yes, my dear grandchildren, I remember in my youth coming to a fork in the road in my life. And I had to choose the road to go down. Now, I could have taken the one well-worn, the path of least resistance, the path that most would take. But did I? No. I took the uncharted course. I took the road less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. And that's why I'm here today. That's what I believe this poet, Robert Frost, was trying to express to us. You see, life is a serious thing. This poem is a metaphor. And what a metaphor is, it's saying something, but it's not really that. Like we have a song we sing in our hymnal that says, "A mighty fortress is our King." That's a phrase metaphor. And what that's saying, our God's like a fortress? I mean, and we think of a castle, or we think of something. He's not like, but in the sense he is. He's mighty, he's strong, he can't be overcome. He's a fortress, he's a place of security. So he's at this crossroad, he's at this critical junction in his life, and he has to make a decision. It says in here that the author of this song, Robert, he said that this man took the road less traveled by. Less traveled by. Both of these producing different endings. Every road in life has a different ending. The two that I'm talking about this morning have almost extreme opposite endings. Totally. You know, you say, well, how do I know? How can I go down? You see, God, the scripture I just read, the very first scripture I just read, told us and give us a clue to help us to understand, and we'd know, and God will let us know what path, which way we're going to go. And I believe he wants to this morning. You see, Jesus talks about in the 7th chapter here, verse 13 and 14, he's telling everyone that reads it here, that the majority is not the right road to take, what the majority takes. That's what he says. He says, wide is the way of the world goes. Wide is the way of sin. Wide is the way, the place that leads to hell. Wide. But he says narrow. Narrow is the gate. You know what narrow means? I wonder how narrow he's talking about. I wonder when you get right down to it, how many people really will make it to heaven? How narrow? How narrow? How you have to measure up? One road leads to heaven, and one road leads to hell. That's the end. There's 3 questions I want to ask you this morning. With the Lord's help, I'm going to be short, brief, and leave the rest to God. But these 3 questions, the first one is this. Why is one road traveled so much and the other hardly ever traveled? Remember the parable of the prodigal son? Chapter 15, verse 11. It says, Jesus continued, he says, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of estate." So he divided his property between them. And of course, we know the rest. He left, went away, and wasted it riotously. But I was thinking about this prodigal son. Why did he choose that path to take? Why did he choose to leave the father? He didn't really see what he had. He didn't recognize what he had. You know, I think we as individuals, we don't recognize, especially when we come to Jesus and we have an experience with God, and then we turn our back on him and we leave him. I don't think we know what we're leaving. I don't think we know what we're going into. I don't think we realize what we left and where we were before we found him. Why did this prodigal son choose the road he chose? Well, it says here, give me my share. He said, give me my share. Sounds like a little bit of selfishness to me. I want what's mine. And sometimes that causes us, our selfishness. We have to be careful because selfishness will take you down the wrong road. It'll get you in a place where you make the wrong choice in life. in situations, in how you are, even in our personalities. Maybe it was because he chose this path because it was the easiest way. His father is just going to hand it over to him. Just give it to him. And you know, we live in a world that wants everything easy. And I think that's one of the reasons Christianity isn't just booming today. Because, you know, we have a lot of people that say, Christianity, that's bad. A bunch of pansies get together and raise their hands and worship the Lord and stuff like that. But I want to tell you what, I challenge any sinner to truly put his heart into it and try to walk the line and live the life and see what it's like. See the battle that you have to fight. See the struggles you go through. Oh, man, there's some great things in there. But I want to tell you something. The battle's not over till it's over. But maybe the easy route. You know, the way of sin looks easy. Maybe as he looked down that road and in his mind, he saw all the things that money could do. He saw all the things that could lead him. He saw what he could have and what he could put in his pocket. I want to tell you something. All that stuff's going to be gone someday. Then what are you going to have? He found that out. It's not in things. It's not in what we have, unless it's what we have right here. What we have inside. What's alive in you. Maybe it was because of an emotion. You see, what makes me feel good? What makes me feel good? It said that he set off for a distant country. In his mind, he already had his mind made up. It sounds like he already was zeroed in what he was going to do, where he was going to go, the people that he was going to be with, and what he was going to do. An emotion, a feel good. Partying, boozing, shooting up, feel good for a while. Maybe an emotion of anger is why he chose that road. Maybe his dad made him mad. Maybe it was bitterness because he was in a place with his brother. He became bitter because his brother was treated a little bit different. He's going to get 2/3 of it, and I'm just going to get 1/3. He's going to get 2/3 because he's the older son, and I'm the younger son. That's not fair. And there's bitterness there. Anger, hate. Maybe it was because of pride. Maybe one day his father said, you don't need to go down that road. You don't need to take that road. And because of his pride, nobody's going to tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me to. I live my own life. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'll tell you what, don't ever tell God that. Don't ever tell God that. Because you know what he'll do? He'll say, if that's what you want, that's what you get. And he'll step back, and he's kind. God is loving. He doesn't enjoy it. He weeps in his heart, I believe. What would it be like to step back away from someone you love and just say, do whatever, waste your life away? Waste your life away. Just go ahead and live however you want to. Lose your life in the world. Maybe it was he went down that path just because it was the majority. It was just the majority. You know, most people feel a sense of security when they follow the path of the majority, because they're in the strength of the crowd and they're not singled out, and they don't really have to be pointed to, you see. They desire to remain in the comfort zone. They desire to not take a risk. I want to tell you something. We say, I can't risk giving my life to Jesus. I can't do that. I got other things I need to do. Do you realize what you're risking if you make the other choice, choose the other road? Take a look. Take a look and just think about it. My mother was like probably some of your mothers. I was blessed to grow up in a Christian home, and I didn't always get what I wanted to. I didn't get to go where I wanted to, didn't always get to do what I wanted to do. And sometimes I'd ask her, and you know what her answer was? She had a really good answer. Just because. But then I'd say, Mom, it's just like one time I said, Mom, now I'm in high school, okay? I'm in high school. Boy, that's changed, hasn't it? And I go to my mom and I say, Mom, is it okay if I stay out past 11 o'clock? Who said that? No, you're right. No. Well, why, Mom? Everybody else is doing it. You know what she said? Said, if you went over to a cliff and everybody else was jumping off a cliff, would you jump off? Y'all heard that too, hadn't you? Haven't you? Yeah. Just a thought here. If we had 50 million people in here, 50 million, that'd be tight, wouldn't it? Let's say 500. There you go. Get a little more comfortable. If we had 500 people in here, and these 500 people said exactly the same thing. They said a foolish thing. Would it matter? Would it still be foolish because 500 people said it? It would, wouldn't it? Kit, you understand what I'm saying here? Okay. Do you ever think, I know y'all think I think strange, and I know my wife does sometimes. She says, why do you talk about that? Why do you say that? Just the way it works. Or doesn't work, one or the other. But I was thinking about the percentage of successful people. When I was in elementary school, junior high, high school, there was probably in the class, I don't know this for a fact, but just thinking back, probably 2, 3, 4 that made straight A's. I wouldn't want to. But straight A's, right? In a company, there's only about 3% of the people rise up and take a high position. 3%. In an average-sized town, just an average-sized town, maybe a town, I don't know what average would be, probably a little bit smaller than this, but an average-sized town, or let's just say Shreveport, you could probably, compared to how many's here, find a few millionaires. A few. In the world, you only find successful people in the minority. They're the minority. Successful people are. Okay, I thought about that. So why do we take the same path as the sinners of this world? Because they're the majority. Why do we take the same path? We see they're not successful in life, real life, and a lot of otherwise. Sinners are the majority, and yet we follow them and we see how they live and the results of their life. It doesn't make sense why we choose that path. What are you going to be? What's it going to be that decides the factor what road you choose? What is it? Probably didn't name most of it. It might be a person that keeps you from going down that road. It might be your desires that keep you from going down the right road. Proverbs 1:10 says, "My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not." Exodus 23:2 says, "Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil." Don't follow the crowd. Don't do what the crowd does. Let me tell you who to do. Do what you think Jesus would do. Do it the way he would do it. As a matter of fact, it might not hurt to just ask him. I believe he would probably fill you in and let you know. He loves us that much. And probably he's already talked to us, but we're trying to get a way that we can do this. And so we ask him anyway. When we already... I used to go to my mom and I'd ask her something. I knew what the answer was going to be. I don't know why I went there. The second question is this. We need to ask ourselves, is someone following me? Is someone watching me as I'm going down this path? In the 80s, there was a commercial that came on TV, and I remember it just as plain. As a matter of fact, that's why I found it, and we're going to look at it in just a minute, is because of how it stirred me and how it stayed with me. Let's look at it.
It's yours?
No,
Mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must have...
Must have what?
Look, Dad, it's
Where
not...
did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
Anybody remember that one? Who told you how to do this? You did. You did. I learned from watching you. I learned from watching you. My question this morning, man, when I was working on this, I thought, what if I was to ask my son, one of my sons or my daughter, what did you learn watching me? I wonder what they'd say. I wonder what they would say. If they were really honest, I wonder what they would say. Would they say, I learned how to swear and I learned how to chew? Would they say, I learned how to down a six-pack? How to physically, emotionally, and verbally abuse my spouse? I learned how to do that. That's how I learned how to do it. That's how I learned it. I learned how to cheat. I learned how to steal. I learned how to lie. I learned how to be prideful. I learned how to hate my enemy, and I learned how to get even with them. Or did they learn how to be faithful in church? Did they learn how to be kind and gentle and humble and loving to all, everyone, all? Did they learn how to pray? Did they come in and or I had a friend who lived in West Virginia. Not a real close friend, but a friend through acquaintance. Who in the morning would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he would go into his study, and he would pray and pray and pray and pray. He had 2 sons, 2 teenage sons. He got cancer and passed away. I wonder after that, what stuck out with those sons. I heard one testify at a youth camp that had just gotten saved. The reason I found Jesus is because I used to hear my dad pray for me in his office at 4 o'clock in the morning, day after day after day after day. Do our kids learn to pray because they see us pray? They hear us pray? They experience prayer with us? Do they? Make it a family thing. You know, I wish there's a lot of things in life, and I don't want to go through life again because I probably mess it up worse than I did the first time. But there's some things that I wish I could change somehow. And that would be one. I wish that we'd have had more time in prayer together as a family. To pray together. To let God feel our heart, and let each other feel our heart. To let our children know how much we love God. And how much we love them. And how much we want them to follow God. Do they have the passion for Jesus? Because they saw the passion in your heart. They saw it there. They saw it coming out. They saw the desire. They saw the hunger. You're not just choosing the path for you. You're choosing the path for others too. You're choosing the path for others. Do you want them to go down the same path you took or are taking? Do you? Do you want them to go down the same path? Do you want them to experience the hurts that you have felt? Do you want them to have the same scars you have in your heart and have in your life? Do you want them to face the same disappointments and have the same pain? The same mental anguish that you have? Third question that we need to ask ourselves, probably the most important one. Where does this road end? Where does it end? In the poem it says, and he looked down one as far as he could. As far as he could. That's what we need to do. We need to look down the path, the road that we're getting ready to go down, or we're going down, and say, where's this going to end up? We need to think ahead. This man, what he was doing, in his mind, he was thinking this through. Which path am I going to take? Where is this going to end up? What am I going to face? When we, 1989, I think, right around that time, did y'all have an ice storm around here in the late 80s? I think you did, because when we come in 94, there were still houses that were for sale because the hail had damaged and there was ice and stuff. Well, whenever that was, I believe it was along 89, 85, 89, right in there somewhere. But anyway, we just happened to choose that time to go to Hot Springs to visit my parents from North Carolina. That's from way up yonder to way down here. Okay? We had a van. We got in the van. We started traveling. We started going, and we got to. It was almost to Nashville, Tennessee. And we noticed the traffic was sort of jammed up a little bit. And we went through, and boy, we worked our way through, and it's still on the other side of Nashville. It was a lot of traffic. And then all of a sudden, the traffic just dead stopped. I mean, traffic for miles. And so here we started driving, and we'd drive probably, or I'd drive 25 to 45 mile an hour right in there. From Nashville, headed from Nashville to Memphis on the interstate. Well, we got up, and finally we got up there, and we saw, and it was like something that was off the side of the road, I think it was like a a truck or something like that with a a travel trailer behind it had pulled, and it was off the side of the road. And I thought, well, that's what it is. All this because of just that. And so we got around it, the cars went on, but it's still slow. I mean, we put it. Finally, we hadn't gone just a few miles. I mean, we went slow. And we got up there, and all of a sudden we looked, and there was a car off here, and a truck off here, and a bus off here, and a pickup truck here, and cars. And it was just all along the road from Nashville to almost halfway or further to Memphis. It was just, and the reason it was is because it had started sleeting and it had turned to ice. And cars were running off the road. And it looked like you just look in front of you and look behind you. It looked like a battlefield, didn't it? One or two of them was upside down or sideways. I've never seen anything like that. It took us so long to get that far that it was dark when we got real close to Memphis. And we're in the van, and we're going down the road like this, driving. I am, and the kid's sort of semi-conscious and stuff. And it's dark, and everybody's just going real slow because of the ice, just still. And all of a sudden, the van just started going, sliding off the road. Remember that? And oh, Jesus. And it just sort of slowed down a little bit. And I said, I think maybe we need to turn around and go back to the next exit. And so that's what we did. We got off, went around, turned around, went up the next exit, got there, and I think there was one room left. One room. You see, we made the right turn. We stopped when we should have stopped, and we made the right turn. We did. You know, we just like our trip, you know, the road of life along the way. If we could just look and see all the accidents, that's strongly on me. If we could just see that in life, if we could see all the wrecks, all the homes that are wrecks because of choices that's been made. If we could see all that, if we could just see it, it all ends up in a dead end. I'm thankful I was able to turn around and go the other direction. Psalms 1:6 says, "For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction." Proverbs 16:25 says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death." This morning, without a doubt, I believe that there are people here, not a person, but people here, who are at a point in their life. It's sort of like a crossroad, a point in their life that it's time to make a decision, and you know it is. It's time to make that decision. It's time for that to be a turning point for you to turn around and go the other way. You know, that happened to the prodigal son. He left, and he went out on his own, and then his life became a mess. But you know what? It says that he remembered. He remembered that in his father's house he had everything he needed and more. And so what did he do? He took the road home. And that's what some of you need to do this morning. You need to turn around. That word, turn around, you could say repent. It means the same thing. Repent means turn around and go the other direction. In closing, let me say this first of all. Even though it's extremely important where you start, what really counts is where you end up. And this morning, I believe that you can turn around. This morning, we have opportunity. God's given some of you opportunity this morning to make a turn and go the other direction. One more question. It's a long question, but it's one more. After your spirit leaves this body, rises out of this body, and the casket closes. Say, don't talk like that, Pastor Doyce. I don't like that kind of talk. You better get used to it. You're going to see a lot of it. And the pallbearers get a hold of the handles, and they carry the casket, your casket, the body, down the aisle. And they take it and pull it out of the hearse and walk down and set it down at the cemetery. And then they lower it down into the hole. And then they start throwing the dirt on, and you can hear the clods hit the top and fall down the side. And the last tear has been cried, and people leave, and you're there, your body's there, all alone. This is the question. Where will you spend eternity? Where will you spend eternity? Today, you're looking at two roads. Two roads. Which one are you going to choose? The road to hell or the road to heaven? It's your choice. Not my choice, not anybody else's choice here, not your mother's choice, not your dad's choice, not your wife's choice, not your best friend's choice. Only yours. It's not even God's choice. Oh, that's what He would choose. But He allows you to make that choice, and only you can make that choice. A preacher was out in West Texas, and he sort of got lost, and he couldn't find himself, and he went up to the door, and he knocked on this door, and this freckle-faced boy come to the door. He said, "Hello, sir." He says, "Can I help you?" What he did, he says, he asked him basically how he could get to his destination. "Well, mister," said the boy, "go right down the road 2 miles. Now, it's going to be rocky. It's going to be rough. It's going to be dusty. It's going to be dry. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be bumpy along the way. But then you're going to come to the cemetery. Go through the cemetery. And when you get to the other side, right through the cemetery, it's smooth the rest of the way. It's smooth. You know, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. This life is going to be rough. And you might as well expect it. Your things we face. But we need to follow the directions and realize that on the other side of the cemetery, if we let Jesus into our heart, it's a piece of cake. It's more than that. More than that. Let's stand.